Hi! Welcome to Jamie Riddler Studios. I'm Jamie and I'm so glad you're here. I'm excited because today I'm going to invite you to be a part of the Journal Showdown. A couple of years ago, my sister Shannon and the Journaling Sage put together an event that we called the Journal Showdown. It was an opportunity for each of us to share all the journals we regularly use, and it was so much fun. It's been a few years, so I thought that not only would I come back and share with you again what I'm using right now, which is changed quite a bit actually, but also to invite you to take part. Journaling is such a solitary activity. It's very private, but I think that's why we all get so curious about what each other is doing. So be sure to make your own video, blog post, Instagram post, mark it hashtag Journal Showdown, and also feel free to tag me. I'll have my contact information below. And it would be awesome if you could share this video with your community. Let's see how many people we can get to take part in the Journal Showdown. Okay, let me start with my journals. I will say that I have narrowed down how many journals I use from the last time I did the Journal Showdown. At first I thought, I was like, wow, you know what? I think I'll be able to see that I am really only using three journals. And then I was like, well, no, really, there's 4. No, wait, maybe there's 5. Well, then if you include that, so it got a little bigger than it first started, but I can say that I have my core journals, and this is, I think, the reason I wanted to share and create the Journal Showdown again this year was because I feel so excited about my core journal practice and the way that my journals are working for me. It just feels tickety boom. And I know as journalers, we're often trying to get it just right. Maybe we are looking for the just right journal, or maybe we go from, you probably recognize this one, trying to have as few journals as possible, maybe even just one that holds everything in it. And then we switch to, but maybe it would be smarter if I had one journal per category of everything I'm doing. And then it sort of goes like this in terms of how many journals we have. But right now what I have is really working, so I'm so excited to share it with you. And maybe there'll be something in here that has some resonance and helps you deepen or expand or start your journal practice. So the first thing I have is just a regular Moleskine. I always put a sticker or something I find beautiful on the front. This is actually a beautiful sticker called The Secret Garden. It's by Amy T. Wan. She has beautiful, I'll put a link to her below too. She creates really wondrous art and offerings. So this is my private journal, is what I'd call it, my personal journal. And one of the things that came up when my mom passed away, and it's something I've had conversations with many creative people about, is are our journals to share with other people, or are they really the private meanderings of our heart? And what I've done, again, since my mom passed away, and to sort of resolve this in myself, is I have some journals that are very private. Like this is my most private journal, and all I do is when you open it up is I've written right on it, private, please don't read. And that, I think, is a kindness to the people in my life, so that if they stumble across it, that when they read that, they know this is something I would prefer that they not read, and they can just get rid of it or return it to me. If I'm alive, they should return it to me. If it's after my passing, they can just get rid of it. So this is a journal I write in every day. It's where I do my free writing. It's where I pour whatever's in my heart, whatever's on my mind onto the page. It's where I am completely uncensored, unedited. It's the journal I take with me if I'm going to, back in the day, to a coffee shop, where I could just write and write and write and write and think these out. This is my basic. Honestly, I can't live without having a journal where I can just pour out everything into it. And this is what I use. Very basic Moleskine. One of the reasons I chose that is it has, I have quite small handwriting, and it has reasonably small lines, and I can get a lot of use out of one of these journals, and I write a lot. So that is important. The second journal that I use every single day is what I call my everything journal. Now for this, I'm using a Luke term, and these have been perfect because they last about a season for this practice, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on how vigilant I am. But it has been just right. It's a dotted one too. And I call this my everything journal. All the women in my family have always had an everything. They haven't always called it an everything journal. That's what I call mine, but they've always had it. And it's where we write our to-dos. It's where we, instead of always having a scrap piece of paper, it's where we put somebody's phone number or a note we want to take about something or something we've thought of or something we want to follow up on. And I have a structure for that. So every week at the beginning of the week, I create one page. This is actually, if you've taken my class, my grid journaling class, this is basically what I do. I just haven't drawn the grid on it. And I put the date for the week, and then I put all my to-dos that I can think of for the week by category. And I get used to sort of doing like on this side, this whole page ends up being things that I'm doing for the studio. And then I have home stuff, and I have people I need to correspond with. I have some things I'm learning. Those of you who've done the studio yearbook or Mindful Mondays, these are generally organized by my focus areas. And I try to just get a picture of the entire week and all my to-dos on this page. I've recently been adding a piece of washi tape, some metallic washi tape over the corner so I can see where each week is. And then I go into my dailies, and how I'm doing this, I'm so excited to share it with you because this has changed everything for me. This has been such a revelation. So what I do is I use a 2-page spread for every day. The right-hand side, I treat a little bit like a scratch pad. If I put the things that I'd like to get done today, and I'm always overly ambitious. But if I put them on that side of the page, it feels like they are written in pencil. Like I'm kind of going, you know what, I'd like to do this today. So I hold them a little bit more lightly. If I get an idea during the day, I write it there. If something happens and I want to follow up on it in any way, I put it there. And then on this side, on the left-hand side, I put what I've actually done. So if I called IKEA, I say I called IKEA and what did their customer service say? I make note of it there so I have a record of it. If I recorded this video for you, it'll be on here that I started the Journal Showdown. Anything that happens or that I actually got done goes on the left page, and anything I'm sort of thinking of, working out, sketching out goes on the right-hand page. This style has been a game changer for me. It helps me stay organized while also helping me stay free. And that is one of my priorities when it comes to planning. If you've done planning day, I've turned all these things into so many offers. If you do planning day, you know that that's what I'm looking for, a balance of form and freedom. Enough form to sort of support me moving forward and getting things done and creating and achieving. And I love that, but not so tight that I don't have room to change my mind or follow a new idea or get excited about sketching out what could be. And so that has been my everything book, is just my joy and my delight. And if I have something, like let's say I have something come up. Today I was working on something and it needed more. I was looking at my plants and my plant care, and I just open up to the next page and I gave a 2-page spread over to working out some things about plant care. And then tomorrow will just be the next 2-page spread. So I get really flexible about it and I'm able to have everything in this place. At the front, I will put the dates. This started on X date and I finished on Y date. And it becomes a reference for me as well. So that if I need to know, okay, what was the confirmation number of my return to IKEA, then I know it is in this book. And I can usually figure out the date. And so I was thinking, and then of course I have if you have been a part of the studio, you've probably seen and know my studio yearbook. So these really are my daily practices. My studio yearbook is something you can take part in at the studio. You can go on over to openthedoor.ca and click on the studio yearbook and join in the excitement. of this. It's a seasonal guided journal, and this is my current one. It's still summer. You can feel the summer vibe at the beginning. And it is, I fill it up with all sorts of stuff. Every season we do a self-portrait. This is what I chose for my self-portrait this season. We put in the things we are reading, watching, events we go to, people we're hanging out with, the creative mediums we're exploring. It's got a calendar. And then every day it has a place for your practices. We document our day, we gather inspiration, we learn to look for inspiration in a very active way. This one's actually, my inspiration that day was a comment here on YouTube, and so I printed it out and put it in my yearbook. We put what we created today, what we learned today. We have a picture each day. I snuck Scout over here instead of putting it down there. All right, we have some words for the day. Often it's a quote. I love putting something I overheard or something funny I heard someone say, but today I put the words decisive goodness. And they were a bit of a touchstone for me based on what I'd learned that day. We do a gratitude practice. We give ourselves gold stars. We also do full moon dream boards in here. And we have a new moon practice to start setting intentions. I just want to show you this is my current dream board. And oh, it just makes me so happy. Those 3 journals are the 3, when I was thinking about it, I thought those are the 3 that I really, really am using all the time. My personal journal, my everything journal, which helps me with planning, and then my studio yearbook, which gathers my life and helps me stay true to my creative practices. So those would be my core 3. And then I would say I have other purpose-built journals, the journals that have a very particular goal in mind. And one of them, and I promise you, if you've not heard of this, it is going to take you down a rabbit hole you are going to enjoy so much. This is my commonplace book. So just go look up commonplace book and see what comes up. It is a place where you gather knowledge, wisdom, and so I love to learn all the time. I'm reading constantly. I'm taking classes constantly. And so this has become a place that I gather, that I take notes. If you're anything like me, I can't even process the excitement of my ideas or the engagement in some new thought without scribbling it down somewhere. So now, instead of it being all over the place, it's always in here. And this is also a Luke term and a dotted. I just like that. And it has an index at the front. And so what I'm doing is, and if you bullet journal, then you do this. Luke term has, the pages are numbered, and I'll say the class that I was taking notes on. So that's an easy reference for me if I'm like, what was that? I remember that I learned that in da-da-da-da class. I'd love to go back to get that reference. I've got it here in my commonplace book. And people do a lot of things. You can use a commonplace book for recipes, for following your garden, for learning about trees, whatever, for your art practice. Like imagine any art research, your experience with different supplies and tools, what you use, the classes you're taking, the projects you're working on. It can become like your own encyclopedia. It's very exciting. Oh, I also have a book that I use. This is a wonderful card. This is a part of a calendar from Pamela Zagorensky. And this is how some people put on the spine, the dates. I put a picture that I love on the cover, and then that becomes my association with what the book is. This is a book that I use, a journal that I use for planning for the studio, for dreaming for the studio, for thinking through things in the studio. And so it's kind of like if the studio had a journal, this would be it. So I have that as well. And speaking of that, actually, I've also recently had so much fun, and I'll leave a link below to where I learned how to do this, creating these books for thinking through. I'm doing a bunch of revisioning in this studio, and one of the things I've learned about my revisioning, which is why I've done it in journals like this or in a big sketchbook, is that I think like this. So I don't think like this. I don't think along a line like this. It's why I tend to spread out. It's why I'm thrilled to have tables all around here in the studio. It's why I like to work on the dining room table. I like to spread out and see, and then I can see patterns. I can reflect on where connections are, and that just happens to be the way my mind works. And so recently I learned about, I'm taking Carla Sunheim's yearly class, Word and Pictures, and she had a lesson and also referenced another instructor, which I will share, about making accordion books. It doesn't show as well in this direction. Accordion books. So this is my current accordion journal, and I literally just used paper bags from food we've ordered. And the nice thing about it is, so you can use both sides, which I've done. And also, and I haven't done this yet, but let's say I wanted to explore, okay, so this page is for devotion, which is a class that I'm going to be offering in the winter, and registration is going to open up for that in November. So I put that in the context of all my offerings at the studio, which go in this direction. If I decide to create a whole section on just my exploration of what do I want devotion to be about, what do I want it to include, I can make another page that comes out this way and folds over and becomes a part of the accordion. So this is a new addition to my journaling practice, but I do so many projects that I love the idea of having one journal per project, and this way it allows me to think in multiple directions, not simply from front to back, and that is glorious. And also because you continue to add pages, I don't feel restricted or limited. If I get an idea and it builds on something else, I can add it. So I've got that one for the studio, and this one I started to try to figure out what that would look like in terms of time. So I built one that would be a year in the studio, and how could I put in each of these offerings in that different time. And then the only other thing I can say is that I would have to include, I always have some form of blank, this is a Moleskine, just a blank sketchbook, because being able to draw and doodle has really become a part of my life. And so I always need to have something close by. And it's so funny because when I created this, you know, this little bunny started out just as a doodle, and then he became a figure that I often use in the studio. And so when you have a space to be free and draw and doodle and be really unprecious, like some of this you know, I'm a little shy to show you because it's really just meant to be fun, or to explore an idea, or just to give myself a mental break on the page. And so I always want to have a sketchbook too. So there you have it. Those are my journals, my personal journal, my everything journal, my studio yearbook, my commonplace book, a diary and a vision book journal for the studio, these project-based journals in which I'm trying out this accordion book, and also a sketchbook always. That is what is on my pile of journals. I would so love to hear how you are journaling. What form does your journaling take? Do you divide by projects? Do you have one journal you use for everything? Do you recognize some of what I do and you're saying, I do that too, Jamie, I do that too? Make your own video, create a blog post, put it up on Instagram, share out in the world the Journal Showdown. Be sure to link back to here and tag me and hashtag Journal Showdown. I can't wait to see how you journal.